eyes wide shut. Will you ever recognize me as I walk towards you, rictus grin fixed across my face, eyes ablaze with love, passion, and desire? Will you notice the way I keep you in my sights as my charm flows over you, seeping into your every pore and orifice? Will you take heed of the sugar-coated words as they spill from my mouth, telling you so remarkably all the things that you want to hear? Will you take note of the phrases which have been recycled again and again and possess the novelty of a cliché? Will you look deep into my eyes and see past your reflection, or will you remain transfixed by what shines in these dulled, dark eyes? Will you question, how is it that I know so much about you, where you live, where you work, your hobbies and your hates? Will you feel the chill down your spine as I appear once again, without warning, at a location you frequent? Or will you regard it as the tingling sensation of excitement and the thrill of my alluring personality? Will you question the platitudes that I issue, like confetti sprinkled on the breeze? Or will you smile and nod and savor the warmth that rises within you as I tell you how wonderful you are and that we belong together? Will you frown at my declaration of love within a day and a night and a day of meeting you? Or will you accept and swallow those carefully crafted words without a moment's consideration? Will you wonder how my hands and mouth became so skilled? Or will you submit to their heady application and give breathless thanks that they are laid upon you? Will you query how this golden light continues to shine, and wonder why you were chosen above all of the others? Will you see through the veneer of scathing hatred for those who have gone before you, or will you become co-conspirator and sneer at her or at him, disgusted by their lack of dignity in the way that they behave? Will you not ask yourself whether their words ring with truth, and why they look as if their very essence has been sucked from them, leaving naught but a fractured shell? Will you wonder why the gifts keep on coming? Will you question the forbidden fruits that have been laid before you, or will you gorge on them, delirious with desire and elated by the ecstasy of our largesse? Will you recognize me when I turn my face from you when you try to kiss me? Will you know what is happening when you are left in a tearful heap on the floor for the third time in a week? Or will you flagellate yourself for your shortcomings? Will you notice as the triangles are weaved around you, and your best friend becomes your supposed enemy, but by whose say-so? Will you fight back against the control that is exerted on the way that you look, what you choose to do, and who you interact with? Or will you accept it and allow your sense of self to evaporate? Will you understand what is happening to you as you crawl alone into that ice-cold bed, this once haven of sexual congress that now lies like an empty tomb? Will you realize what is going on as you blink back tears as the clock shows 3 a.m. and you have no idea where I am? Will you stand up for yourself when you are labeled whore, slattern, idiot, and fool? Or will you bow your head and retreat, thankful that your injuries are only verbal this time? Will you remember what you once were? Will you remain bound by the chains of confusion, or will you break them across your knee and free yourself from this cruel bondage? Will you recognize me as my hand grips your throat and my bile-infused words rain down on you, spittle-flecked hatred peppering your face? Will you dial my number for the 50th time in 2 hours as you desperately try to hear my voice and ask me, beg me, plead for me to come home? Will you wince as another dinner set falls prey to my savage fury? Will you kneel and pick up the pieces, fingers shaking, as you fumble for the broken shards that lie scattered across the floor? Will you know what is being systematically done to you each and every day? Or will you obscure the reality for praying for that golden light to come back and dispel the darkness? Will you recognize me for what I truly am? Or will you make yet another excuse, wondering what will happen when you run dry of the excuses and hastily constructed explanations for my reign of terror? Will you recognize me as I cast you aside, shoved into the dirt and sneered at? Will you look up from the smouldering ruins of what we once had and see her, or is it you, looking back at you with disdain writ large across her made-up features? She seems so familiar. Do you know her? There is such a fog now, and it clouds so much. Will you understand why you have been forgotten about, as your numbed fingers compose another searching email, asking for explanations that will not come, expressing tearful anger that will be smiled at, detailing your abject hurt, which will only ever receive a dismissive shrug? Will you recognize me for what I am when I reach out a hand and lift you from your broken existence? Will you know what truly is going to happen as I lead you once more towards the brilliant, burning, golden light? Will you feel the prick of caution in your mind, or will you gladly race towards the promised land once again, concern and hesitation thrown to one side? Will you notice the rictus grin once again as you race ahead of me? Will you pay attention to the darkened glint in my baleful gaze, or will you charge headlong towards the paradise, addicted to its warmth and glorious sensations? Will you recognize me as I close the door behind us, bolt it, and turn the heavy iron key in the lock as the thick drapes are pulled across the dirt-smeared windows? Will you notice the sharpened dagger that I have produced and hide behind my back? Will you stop and glance in the shattered mirror that dominates this place? And if you do, will you recognize yourself?